I don't think I've seen legs like that on a card table outside of a museum. Yeah.
Really?
Wow. Thank you.
Almost like winning the lottery.
Well, they say every picture tells a story, and Christopher, there is a story attached to this one, isn't there?
Yes, well, not so much as regards the subject of the painting, which, as we can see, is cupids playing or disporting, as they might have said in old catalogues. And
What kind of painting is that? That very pale, colourless sort of...
It's what's called a grisaille, French word, which really means painting in these grey and white tones. It was very popular in the 18th century, particularly for sort of decorative use. In other words, this picture might have been painted to fit in a panel of a room, or on a staircase, or over a door.
So what is the story about this actual painting?
There is, in fact, another version of this painting here in the museum, which you found out.
I came one day to look at the Jones exhibition, which is part of the V&A, and in about the third room, I saw it hanging on the wall, and I thought, that's extraordinary. I've got that painting. Yes.
Well, it really is a coincidence, though of course it does happen in art history that there are second versions, copies. It's quite common, and that's what sort of keeps art historians like me occupied. And the V&A picture is attributed to a French 18th century artist called Sauvage. Now, it's not signed, nor is this one, so we can't be sure really that either picture is by Sauvage. But what I feel is that looking at the technique of this and the canvas and the quality of it, it is probably a later copy, maybe done at the end of the 18th century. You see, Sauvage was early 18th century. But
Are they worth identical money?
I think probably, as this is a later version, this is probably worth less than the one in the Jones collection. But can you tell me where you acquired this?
We bought it at a sale in the mid-1960s.
Do you remember what you paid?
Yes, we paid £120 for it.
£120. Well, I think you did well. Now, in a sale, you get £2,000 to £3,000 for it.
Well, I wouldn't want to sell it, but thank you anyway.
Well, thank you for bringing it. It's the most amazing coincidence.
The first thing to say about this is that there is an almost identical piece in the Victoria and Albert Museum. In fact, I think yours is slightly better, because the one in the V&A doesn't have the base part to it. But it has these panels of marquetry, identical to this, and it has a nice warm feel to it, as if it's a family piece.
Yes.
So is it?
Yes, it is. My father bought it after the war. Then when he died, he left it to my mother in her lifetime.
Right.
And then when she died just before Christmas, I chose it out of her possessions.
Well, it is basically William and Mary period, just before Queen Anne. Could stretch into about 1700, 1702, that sort of date. This lovely simplistic marquetry, which of course we actually took directly from the Dutch influence.
Yes.
And we want to establish, first of all, because it does affect to a certain extent the value, whether or not it is a Dutch-made one. And it could be made by a Dutchman in England, or it could be by a Dutchman in Holland, and that does affect the value to an extent. And what we do is to see how it is constructed. The oak here is the traditional lining for good quality furniture at that period. On an English one, they veneered onto pine. On the continent, they veneered onto oak.
Yes.
You don't see the front. And so here they used pine. So there is now no doubt that it's made in England. Also, rare for this period, it has the original plate, that lovely sort of fan-tailed
Yes.
lock. Wonderful thing. And here, I think the original handles. Now that in itself is terribly unusual. The one thing that is against it from a collector's point of view is that the feet are not right. It should stand
Much
about
higher.
that high, not much higher, because then you wouldn't see the wonderful top. I want to just look at the condition of it. You can see that the damage is caused by the structure and shrinkage. And if I do that, you can see that piece is loose. That is the moulding which was applied, onto which they put veneer cross-banded. Wonderful, absolutely right for 1690, 1700, but as it shrunk, it's broken away. These pieces have lifted up, and now, of course, you catch the duster every time you dust it. Now, this has to be done extremely carefully, because each of those little pieces has to be cleaned from underneath and laid down. What you cannot do is have somebody simply clamp it up and rub the surface down so that it's smooth. One of the many wonderful things about this is the colour.
Yes.
And this superb
Yes, it
surface.
is. It's beautiful.
This is the original varnish, for want of a better word, that was put on by using lac, shell lac, and rubbed down with reeds and dust, and coat after coat was put on until this surface was achieved. And that has lasted all these years. And it is virtually impossible to recreate that. Otherwise, an exemplary piece. I think for a good insurance valuation, it should be 12,500.
Really?
Yeah.
Gosh. I just had no idea it was anything
Well,
like
it's
that.
an important piece of furniture.
Yes. Well, it's wonderful to know. Thank
All right.
you so much.
Well,
Yes,
thank you for
that's
letting me see
lovely.
it. Okay.
No, that's lovely. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful legs. I don't think I've seen 4 legs like that on a card table before, outside of a museum. There's everything there that there should be on an English card table. The scroll is a double scroll. It's got this curvilinear little paper scroll at the top here. And then that wonderful shell. Then right down here to little drops from this pendulum here. And then a claw and ball foot to die for. Isn't it wonderful? I mean, that's a claw and ball foot. There is the sacred pearl of wisdom being held by the dragon's claw as you've never seen it before. Wonderful. All the shape in the world. I'm sorry, I haven't even said hello. I'm just looking at the table. Is there a family history with this?
It was bought by my grandfather probably sometime in the 1920s or possibly 30s, and then passed to my father and thence to me.
See, in the 1920s when this was bought, this was the sort of furniture that everybody loved. You couldn't sell plain furniture. And this was the original carving that they tried to recreate on so many other plain pieces. And the difference is that a plain table, later carved, will have that shape, but the carving is within the outline. Here, you've got the shell stuck onto this wonderful knee. There it is as if it's applied. To draw that and then create it is something else. And why 4 legs? Normally you have 2 at the front, and then the 2 at the back are sort of more modest, you know, a bit cheaper. It's jolly expensive to carve 4 legs on one table. But it's an occasional piece of furniture, for an occasion. This stood at the side looking very grand. Then after dinner, after the cocktail party, you used it for games or for taking tea. And it extends not with things that flap out. This is a concertina action, okay? So called because it concertinas out. And then when you open it, like so, then you've got a center table. You look at it from here, it's just as beautiful. I mean, what a table.
The top is original, is it?
Totally, totally. This has never been touched. But of course it spent most of its life closed like that and against the wall looking very, very grand. One of the best bits of furniture I've seen for a long time. So this period, 1755, 1760, so George II, maybe early George III. And in today's market, a modest insurance valuation would be 15,000. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's a modest valuation. Yeah. If it turned up in a very good or important sale, I don't know when I would want to stop bidding, actually. More than that, I cannot say. Yeah. Now, Lord Cholmondeley, of all the wonderful things that are on display in the public parts of the house, these items have come from the private apartments, haven't they?
Yes, this has always been in the hall, the entrance hall downstairs, and under one of the mahogany tables, and used as a waste paper basket, I'm afraid.
with a side
very
open.
Practical.
You could always put a liner in it, I suppose, if you want to do that. There should be a pair to it.
There is a pair.
There is a pair.
Yeah,
that's the other side.
The other
waste paper basket. You're coming in or going out of the house. Well, they're plate buckets. That accounts for the fact that it has a gap so that you can lift the plates in and out. And they were carried from the kitchen to the dining room in pairs and carried on a yoke. So you did. I mean, they're so heavy. Anyway, that's quite heavy with that. Yes. Yes. Milk pails. So they've sort of carried them in pairs. This is rather a nice size one, and probably for dessert plates rather than dinner plates.
Right.
It's got a particularly pretty little brass mount around here, which is sort of 1810 to 1815. which is about the right date for these things. They sort of tended to go out of fashion by about 1830 and weren't introduced as such until the sort of 1780s, so they're a fairly short lifespan. And their value, I mean, in pairs usually today between £6,000 and £8,000, depending on their size and quality. But of course, as soon as you have a provenance like this great house, then prices can make anything, because in the future it means that someone's going to own it and say, well, this came from Houghton Hall. So I think we have to ignore the provenance side and say a pair of these should be insured for, say, £7,500 to £8,000.
Really?
But as their provenance makes them unique, then they couldn't be replaced.
Well, I think we certainly shouldn't be using them as waste paper.
Well,
I should find another use.
Put a few plates in just to remind you what they're for.
Exactly.
And then we have this
lovely.
extraordinary wassail bowl, which is made of one of the most dense timbers known, which is Lignum vitae. If you threw that into the lake, it would sink.
Really?
Oh, yes, it does not float. And this was a wassail at Christmas time, and you toasted your friends. They're almost big enough to get into, isn't it?
Like a sort of punch.
Absolutely. Oh, yes, sure. With apples and alcohol and all sorts of things. I mean, it really is a stunning piece. It's one of the largest I've ever seen. There is one maybe a tad bigger, but if not certainly the same size, in the Victoria and Albert Museum, which has a crisscross pattern cut onto it, and the original fitments to go in those little holes. And those were little cups with a spike on. And I suppose 1640 this was made.
Really? Very early.
Yes. Where does this live, by the way?
This lives by Sir Robert Walpole's desk in the library. It doesn't have any purpose. It just sits there.
Don't sort of throw anything into this.
No, well, I suppose with a lid. But
it stands on the floor.
But really, it should be exhibited.
This, in today's market, could easily make £25,000.
Really?
Yes. So pop it on a table now.
Definitely.
Well, it's wonderful to be here in the Victoria and Albert Museum, but I never expected that we'd actually get brought in a museum quality picture. But that's what you've brought. It is fantastic quality. It really is. Just look at the way he has handled the whole light in this market scene. The way the light comes off the candle and illuminates her face. It's the most brilliant piece of work. And you've got the source of light here, then you've got another candle light here, and tremendously subtle lighting in. Look at the reflections on this copper jug, wonderfully handled, and the way these this boy and this young man are conversing. He's looking at him, but he's looking across at her. Wonderful little narrative details in this overall scene. Has it been in your family for some time?
It was in my husband's family.
Right.
And I think his father bought it many years ago.
Was there any particular significance to the subject, do you think, for your father-in-law when he bought it?
Well, he worked in the fish market as a young boy.
Did he?
And his father was in the fish market before him. And so I imagine that because it's a market scene, that's what appealed to him.
Absolutely.
But I don't know, really.
But also the fact that it's on the quayside.
Yes.
There probably is fish being sold somewhere in the distance here.
I would guess so.
And the sort of moonlit nighttime markets would have been something that he would have remembered.
He had a good eye for paintings.
He certainly did.
And I think I had a good eye because when they split the house up, when the parents-in-law died, this was the one thing that I really loved.
It's a very good choice you made. A very good choice. Yeah. I mean, there's so much more when you get into it. There's this wonderful moonlight at the top of the picture. Again, sort of illuminating the silhouettes of the buildings and the rigging of the ships behind, because
they're rigging. I didn't know what they were.
Rigging of sailing vessels.
Yes, of course.
Incredibly beautifully handled, very subtle. And then, to reveal all, down at the bottom, is the signature here.
Yes.
P. Van Schendel.
Yes.
Petrus Van Schendel. A Dutch painter, but he worked in Belgium and Holland, and he absolutely specialised in these moonlit, candlelit scenes. It was his trademark, if you like. It was what he was absolutely brilliant at. And he was working in the middle of the 19th century, between about 18 1830 and 1870 was when he was really in his prime, painted in oil on this very nice bit of wood. Well, just quality is the word for it. It is by probably the leading candlelight painter of the 19th century.
That I didn't know. I did see some of Van Schendel's paintings in New York.
Yes.
2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
Or perhaps 5 years ago.
Yeah. No. Well, his work does come up quite regularly at auction, so we know reasonably clearly what this probably would make. I think at auction he's very much in vogue. He's very much sought after. A lot of people collect him. Probably make between 70 and 90,000 pounds. So you should probably insure it for 100,000 pounds.
Wow. Thank you.
Almost like winning the lottery. Almost. 100,000 pounds for insurance.